Hi there, and welcome to the Shure Creators channel, where in this series we're talking about podcasting. I'm Naomi, the founder of the Skylark Collective and the International Women's Podcast Awards, and we're here today aboard the Boat Pod, where we're going to be taking you through the basics of starting a podcast. Podcasting is huge right now, but if you're watching this video, you probably already know that. This video is about what to consider before you begin. 5 years ago, I started my first podcast with no training or prior experience, and you can too. There are over 2 million podcasts out there, but when you compare that to 50 million YouTube channels and 600 million blogs, there's plenty of room for growth. Now is a great time to be getting started. So you're thinking about starting a show. What do you need to consider? The first thing to consider is why you want to start a podcast. One of the most well-known TED Talks is Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and this is totally relevant to podcasts. Grab a pen and paper, sit down, and put your thoughts out there. What are you aiming for with your podcast? Is it for personal fulfillment? Is it a passion project, a hobby, something you want to convey out there? Is this part of your business, or are you aiming to build a brand? Do you need this to make money, or can it just be a hobby? Just make sure you've answered all these questions and get your why sorted before you start thinking about the what and the how. As someone who's not been traditionally very big on planning, I definitely would advise you not to skip this stage. Once you've figured out why you want to podcast, then you need to work out what you're going to be podcasting about. What's the topic of your show? The Americans have a great phrase, which is, the riches are in the niches. And there are some really niche podcasts out there. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of podcasts in the world, but there's always room for one more, and there's definitely space for yours. Have a look at your potential competition. Google is your friend here. Search on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. What's been done before and how successful was it? The most successful podcasts often offer either a fresh and unique take on the zeitgeist, or they're offering a new perspective on an original idea. Either way, you just need to work out what your USP is, your unique selling point. What is your niche, and what is going to make people want to listen to your shiny new show above the rest of your competitors? We're going to talk about structure of podcasts in the next episode, but the first thing you need to decide is who is along for the ride with you. Is this a solo endeavor, or are you having a co-host? And what about guests? There's advantages to having co-hosts, and particularly if you're doing it with a friend or a colleague that you know well, it can create a really nice buzz and a bit of pizzazz on your show. You can bounce ideas off each other, you can rely on each other, and if you've got a difficult guest or you're addressing a sensitive topic, sometimes just having another person there that you know well can be really, really helpful. But everyone is busy, and everyone has a life. How committed are you both to this podcast? How are you going to divide up the jobs? And if you start making money, how are you going to split the cash? What happens if one of you doesn't want to do the podcast anymore? You may or may not want a written agreement from the beginning. That's a very personal choice, but it's probably worth thinking about and discussing these things from the get-go. The next what is what form your podcast is going to take. Are you going to be audio only, or are you going to use video as well to upload your podcast to YouTube or any of the other video platforms? One of the beautiful things about podcasting is the intimacy that audio only recording can provide. Some people just don't like being on camera. And if you're only recording their voice, they're more likely to open up to you or offer you something that they might not on camera. Other people love being filmed, so it's worth discussing this in advance, particularly if you've got guests. Just don't surprise them. If you're going to do a video recording, tell them in advance, because let's face it, everyone wants to look their best on camera. Remember that even if you're not planning to release your entire show with video accompaniment, video can really help you promote your show, so it's probably worth capturing something, even if it's just little clips, because you can use that on social media and for other forms of promo. When we run sessions at the Skylark Collective, two of the most common questions we get asked are, how long should an episode be, and how often should I be releasing it? I give the same answer every time, which is, there are no rules. You can do what you like. There are weekly podcasts that last 30 minutes, there are daily podcasts that last 5 minutes, and there are monthly podcasts that last 2 hours. It doesn't really matter, and it's up to you. My partner listens to a podcast every week that lasts 2 to 2.5 hours. I'm just not sure that I've got the time or the patience for that, but some people do, and they will listen. Just bear in mind that if you're editing your own podcast, the longer the episode, the longer it takes to put together. One piece of advice I was given at the beginning was the optimal time for an episode is the length of time it takes people to walk the dog, which is about 30 to 40 minutes in most cases. So make of that what you will. Similar principles apply when we talk about how often episodes should be released. I just mentioned that there are daily, weekly, monthly episodes that come out for various podcasts. But don't forget that you can also either run continuously or in seasons. Seasons are great because it allows you to batch record and batch release as well. If you get everything sorted out, you can trickle them out on whatever continuous basis you like. It also allows you to assess how things are doing and make changes as you go along. Continuous or weekly, it doesn't really matter, but the key thing is consistency. Consistency is good for growth. We're going to talk a little bit more about growth in a later episode on monetization, but just bear it in mind for now. So in summary, a bit of thought and planning can go a long way before you start your podcast. Consider your why, your who, your how, and your what. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the Shure Creators channel and click the bell below to be notified every time we've got a new episode coming out. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about structure and storytelling, so look out for that one.